They tried to assassinate Ibrahim Traoré. During a secret meeting, you won't believe how he survived. Have you ever heard the story of a young man whose life changed completely in just one night? He wasn't a superhero in a movie, nor a billionaire with immense power. He was just a soldier, raised in the smoke of war, carrying within him the belief that his country deserved to be free. Every day he witnessed the pain of his people, villages destroyed, families torn apart. But then, one day, fate placed him in a position where the whole world had to watch. A secret room, trusted faces, and a plot that had been prepared for a long time. They wanted to end everything with just a few bullets. Yet he is still here, standing tall, not only surviving, but becoming a symbol for a new generation. And the story you are about to hear will not only keep you on the edge of your seat, it will also make you wonder, what truly creates the strength of a human being? In today's video, you will discover that incredible journey, from the moment death came within reach to the moment an entire nation rose up in belief. And perhaps, somewhere in this story, you will find a lesson for yourself. Burkina Faso, a land in the very heart of Africa, where the sun scorches every inch of soil, yet the pain of its people burns even deeper. For years, the country has been torn apart by terrorism, internal conflict, and foreign influence. Villages lived in fear, vast gold mines poured wealth into others' pockets, while ordinary people remained trapped in poverty. In the midst of it all, a young officer stepped forward. His name was Ibrahim Traoré. He didn't promise miracles. He simply said, "This nation must be free. These resources must belong to the people." Words that seemed simple, yet thundered like a storm across a darkened sky. The people placed their trust in him, but from that very moment, he became a target. To those profiting from the blood and sweat of his nation, Traoré was the most dangerous enemy. And when a leader dares to stand against the old order, you can already predict what will come next. That night, in the heart of Ouagadougou, a secret meeting was held. A small room, dim yellow light falling across a map, spread out on an old wooden table. No journalists, no cameras, only the faces considered the most trusted. Traoré sat at the head of the table, listening intently. The officers discussed security, foreign plots, and the forces trying to strangle the nation. No one suspected that within that very room, a traitor was present. As the air grew heavy with tension, a phone buzzed softly. A trembling finger slid quickly across the screen. Just a few words were sent, but they were enough to trigger a deadly plan waiting outside the door. "The target is inside." Out there, rifles were already loaded. The darkness was waiting for its moment to strike. The silence in the room was suddenly broken by hurried footsteps echoing down the corridor. A few glances were exchanged, filled with unease, but before anyone could react, bam! The heavy wooden door burst open, slamming hard against the wall. 3 shadowy figures stormed in, as if the darkness itself had taken human form. Gunfire erupted instantly, deafening and relentless. Sparks flew as bullets tore into the brick walls. The entire room shook under the storm of smoke and lead. The first bullet shot straight toward Ibrahim Traoré. In a split second, no more than a single breath, he twisted his body, flipping over the thick wooden table as a shield. Bullets ripped through the air, slamming into the surface, splinters flying everywhere. One bullet pierced through, grazing his shoulder, staining his beige uniform with crimson. But he did not fall. His eyes burned brighter, cold and unshaken. His loyal bodyguard lunged forward, throwing his entire body as a shield. Shots tore into him, but he fought on, grappling one of the attackers and slamming him to the ground. Blood, smoke, and screams merged into a chaotic symphony of violence. Officers shouted. Some collapsed, others ducked behind chairs, all caught in the whirlwind of sudden chaos. Traoré clenched his jaw and drew the pistol from his side. His hand was slick with blood, but steady. He aimed directly at the nearest assailant. A single shot rang out, sharp, precise, merciless. The man dropped instantly, his weapon clattering across the floor. Through the haze of gunpowder, Traoré's gaze cut like steel. He wasn't fighting only for survival. He was fighting for an entire nation that had placed its hope in him. When the final gunshot faded, the room sank into a dreadful silence. Gunpowder still hung in the air, the smell of blood and scorched wood seeping into every corner. The surviving officers glanced around, their faces pale and shaken. In that moment, the truth was revealed. The traitor was not a stranger. It was one of the men seated at the very table, someone trusted like a brother. He lowered his head, eyes darting nervously, knowing his secret had been exposed. In his pocket, his phone still glowed with the last message. "The target is inside." The room froze. Traoré, with a hastily wrapped bandage soaking red on his shoulder, stepped toward him. His gaze carried both sorrow and steel. "Who did you sell your soul to?" The question echoed, but the traitor only stared at the floor, too afraid to speak. The investigation that followed uncovered something even darker. This was no isolated act. Behind him flowed foreign money, secret calls made just hours before the meeting. Someone wanted Traoré eliminated at all costs, because he had touched their vast interests. The betrayal shook not just that small room, but the entire nation. People could hardly believe that within the leadership itself, someone had been willing to sell out their country. Yet paradoxically, this revelation only deepened their trust in Traoré. They whispered to one another, if they had to send assassins to kill him, it means he must be walking the right path. After the failed assassination, Burkina Faso erupted. News spread faster than fire. Within hours, tens of thousands of people poured into the streets. They carried flags, banners, and images of Ibrahim Traoré with a white bandage on his shoulder. The chants of "We will not bow down" echoed across the squares. On social media, a short video capturing the moment he appeared before the public, still wounded but unshaken, was shared millions of times. To the people, he was no longer just a president. He was living proof that Burkina Faso could stand tall in the face of danger. But while the crowd celebrated, the outside world trembled. International newspapers rushed to cover the story. Some hailed Traoré as a defiant hero, while others cast doubt, suggesting it could have been a political performance. Heated debates broke out on television, in conference rooms, and across online forums. In Washington, Paris, and other capitals, urgent meetings were held behind closed doors. The question lingered, who orchestrated the attack? And more importantly, what would happen next if a young leader like Traoré continued to challenge the old global order? The aftermath went far beyond a burst of gunfire. It became a political earthquake, shaking not just Burkina Faso but the entire West African region. And from that moment, Ibrahim Traoré's name crossed national borders, becoming a central figure in conversations across the world. After the gunpowder settled, the biggest question still lingered in the air: who truly stood behind this assassination attempt? Some believed it was terrorist groups, those who thrived on chaos and wanted to prove that no government could keep its people safe. But the investigation traced financial trails leading far beyond Burkina Faso's borders. Analysts suggested that international mining corporations had the most to gain if Traoré were removed. He had openly declared that gold, uranium, and rare earths must belong to the people. For those corporations, that was a declaration of war. Yet another theory pointed to ghosts within the system. Certain officials may have felt their power threatened by a young leader rising too quickly, too boldly. To them, Traoré's very existence meant the collapse of the old order. The truth, perhaps, did not rest on a single name, but on a convergence of forces all at once. Hidden hands, secret networks, all sharing one common goal. They wanted Ibrahim Traoré gone. And that raised an even darker question. If he survived this time, how many more plots might already be waiting ahead? Just hours after the failed assassination, international media was flooded with the story. But strangely, the way it was told varied dramatically, depending on who held the pen. Some major outlets portrayed Ibrahim Traoré as a defiant hero, a young leader daring to stand against the world. They called him a remarkable survivor, a youthful leader challenging the old order. Images of him with a white bandage on his shoulder appeared on front pages, turning him into a symbol of courage and conviction. Yet other media outlets planted seeds of doubt. They asked, was this merely a political performance designed to consolidate power? Was the entire event staged to transform Traoré into a hero in the eyes of the public? Debates exploded across international television channels, political talk shows, and social media platforms. Everyone seemed to choose their own version of the truth. And this revealed something crucial. Media doesn't just reflect reality, it can shape reality in ways those in power desire. The story of Traoré was no longer just about a failed assassination. It became another kind of battle, a battle of words, images, and public opinion. A battle as powerful as the bullets that had flown through that darkened room. Throughout history, great leaders have often been forged in moments of crisis. For Ibrahim Traoré, the night when bullets tore into that darkened room was exactly such a test. He did not merely survive, he rose before his people, shoulder wrapped in white bandages, eyes unwavering, voice resolute. That image echoed the legacy of leaders who had endured storms throughout human history, men who proved that true power does not come from weapons or titles, but from courage and the faith of their people. In America, the world once saw Abraham Lincoln guiding a nation through civil war, John F. Kennedy inspiring hope during the darkest days of the Cold War, and Ronald Reagan remaining composed even after an attempted assassination. These moments not only defined their names, but transformed them into timeless symbols. Traoré is stepping onto a similar path. He is becoming living proof of a new Africa, one where young leaders dare to challenge the old order and place the interests of their people above all else. The lesson here is not just for Burkina Faso or Africa, but for the entire world. In the darkest of times, a leader's true strength lies not in how many soldiers he commands, but in how much faith he can inspire. The story of Ibrahim Traoré is not just about a failed assassination attempt, nor merely about a young leader fighting hidden powers. It is also a reminder that the world we live in is full of conspiracies, and anyone who dares to stand up and challenge the status quo must pay a price. But alongside danger, there is also a spark of light, the power of belief. One person, willing to stake his very life on an ideal, can become the flame that ignites an entire nation. That truth applies not only to Burkina Faso, but to every corner of the world. For viewers in America or anywhere else watching this video, the lesson isn't confined to distant Africa. It lives in our own daily lives. We all face invisible forces that try to keep us in fear, in limitation. But if a young man from a small nation can rise up and declare, "We will not bow down," then why can't we do the same in our own journeys? And that is why this story matters. It isn't only about miraculous survival, but about the strength of conviction, the power of faith, and the resilience of the human spirit. If you believe stories like this deserve to be shared, leave a comment below, hit like, and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the inspiring journeys ahead. Because in a world full of chaos, truth and belief are the greatest weapons we have.